There is also another group of people that is prosecuted in Russia, actually two, on religious basis, and this is Jehovah's Witnesses and Crimean Tatars who are accused of being members of Hizb ut-Tahrir. But if with the Crimean Tatars, we can understand that Russia is probably trying to suppress their claim for independence, their claim for rights and national and ethnic rights in Crimea, then with Jehovah's Witnesses, I mean, there are also speculations that they are being ousted as a undesirable organization because so many followers are in the United States. Do you see this as a politically motivated issue or as purely inner Russian religious prosecution?
Well, I think all things ultimately are political in nature. They're to protect a government, a regime. Things are done of this nature in the name of domestic stability and tranquility. I saw this, unfortunately, in my service in China as well. So what should we be doing as Americans? I represent the United States. I represent the American people, our values and our ideals. I stand for those values, which is to say freedom of religion and the emancipation of the human soul, the dignity and human rights of the individual. And all of this includes people being able to pursue their own aspirations religiously speaking, which has been the case in Russia, at least from the 90s on, and it's becoming a very difficult environment in which to operate for some of these so-called minority religions. We hope that we can work toward an environment that is more inclusive of different religions, that match the aspirations of the good Russian people. But right now it's very, very difficult and very troubling. We're not only seeing organizations shut down, we're seeing individual members who are punished for their religious beliefs, which goes against everything that we in the United States and in a whole lot of other countries in this world stand for.
A question from Twitter of Radio Svoboda. When will you introduce real sanctions? Right now it looks like it's half measures. Do you think that sanctions work?
I wouldn't call them half measures. I think they're very, very serious as sanctions go toward individuals and toward entities. And we have hundreds of them in effect right now. So there aren't many things in U.S. politics that unite Republicans and Democrats. This issue in the United States Senate has united almost 100% of Republicans and Democrats. The issues of responding to some of the malign activity that we have seen coming out of Russia, whether toward the annexation of Crimea, eastern Ukraine in Donbass, election meddling, Magnitsky human rights related issues. People uniformly in Congress feel very strongly about these issues and how we should respond. So the sanctions haven't really been much of a debate in the United States Congress, where everything else seems to be debated, right and left and Republican and Democrat. These are pretty much held uniformly by the parties. And I think it's too early to tell if sanctions ultimately achieve their objective. Sanctions are not a short-term tool. They're a longer-term tool. And we're more than happy to discuss the issues, most importantly, that brought the sanctions to begin with. I think that's lost in this whole debate about sanctions. Why talk about sanctions where we could be talking about the issues that created the sanctions to begin with?
Do you think that Russia would try to somehow calm down the situation there, looking at the results of the future second round of Ukrainian presidential elections? Will it try to, buy in the new president, being that Poroshenko or Zelensky?
So when I look at the region, I see steps toward the principles that we champion and many in the world champion, those of openness and transparency and freedom and democracy, and you let it then play out. And Ukraine may have new leadership, it's hard to know, and we'll then all have to adjust to whatever the will of the people happens to be. But I will tell you this, we do care deeply about the territorial integrity of Ukraine, which has been badly violated. And this is a core part of our estrangement with Russia right now. The annexation of Crimea and the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine, which has now taken the lives of 10,400 human beings. It has not been resolved. Nothing has been done in terms of positive steps toward recreating the contours of a whole and free Ukraine, respecting the territorial integrity of a nation state. International law was violated, and we stand tall as a firm believer in international law. So we do hope that as a result of the round of elections, regardless of the outcome, that Moscow will engage in a helpful process that will allow the people of Ukraine to see their nation restored, to see peace brought to the eastern region, which has been completely destabilized, and for the overall temperature to settle down just a little bit, because it has been a period and a region of instability that has been most unfortunate. And it's time to get to the negotiating table and find some solutions, which has not been the case for the last many years.